Good morning, my name is Robin Swan. I'm a citizen of the Eastern Band Cherokee Nation and the daughter of a Persian immigrant. And I am so grateful and humbled to be speaking with all of you today here, the Pechanga Nation and all of the other nations that are here today regarding our beautiful five-finger healer who's given us, but not just us, all of us two-leggeds on all 7 continents, this amazing plant that brings us food, medicine, fuel, clothing, and paper. And I want to just share with you a story of my family, my lineage, and maybe, hopefully, y'all can get some inspiration from it. For less than 100 years, we've been separated from this plant. Its medical properties have had so much regulation. However, we as Indigenous people who have always been the caretakers of it, we have always been the medicine makers of it, we have always grown it. We have been pushed away from so many of our traditions and medicines. It is very exciting for me, being somebody from generational farmers, to be standing here and speaking with you today. I am sure that every single one of us in this room has an auntie, a tia, an uncle, a cousin, can you hear me? Who understands the medicine as well as the nutritional properties of plants. Because we, the Indigenous people of the entire world, have been tasked with the caretaking of them. In our particular culture, we have farmers, wildcrafters, foragers. We live in harmony with the plant people. We have always been growers, so it's no surprise that the five-finger healer has found its way back to us. Once again, we are being tasked with being able to speak. I'm so sorry, I cannot make the word key. Proprietary measures of making sure we make good choices that will ensure our economic development. And as we seed sobriety with this into our communities. As I mentioned, I come from a generation of growers, and not just cannabis growers. My dad served in the Navy as a way to escape the poverty he came from. He was born a sharecropper son on the Pueblo Reservation. Other members of my family have been growing medical hemp for always and since always. My uncles have been growing in the Sierra Nevadas and the Trinity Alps for the last 75 years. So many elders of my nation have been growing hemp. I am so fortunate to understand the power of this plant. My dad's mother, my Alisi, my grandmother, was the farmer, she was the grower, she was the wild crafter. When I was little, I would go out with her and we would cut down these plants that she called ditchweed. Later I found out it was actually wild hemp. She would compress the seeds into oil, roast the seeds for snacking, and then she would take the leaves and the flowers and mix them with other plants she had foraged with bacon grease. She would make this thing called a grease salad, and it would put all of her grandchildren to bed. She was very smart that way. Because of my Alicia, I began making herbal remedies since I was able to stand at a stove or harvest a root. I feel that this is an incredible blessing to me in my life, and why I am speaking here today with all of you. These plants that were grown in the Sierra Nevadas, it's not moving. Sorry. Let's move ahead. Here we are growing. This is my family. These are the plants. Stop here, and then we can go. Okay. The bud structure of the cannabis plant is very different from the bud structure of the hemp plant. Medical cannabis plants are heavy with the molecule called THC or CBD, depending on which strains are being grown. Whereas industrial hemp plants are lacking a great showing of THC. They're high in antioxidants and omega-3s, making them a wonderful addition to our diets and overall health. Industrial hemp can be used to make many textiles. We already know this, right? But industrial hemp does not pack the same punch as medical cannabis does. Understanding what we're growing. I'm so sorry, I'm so technically jammed. Understanding what we're growing is of the most important. This is the way that we're going to get the highest yielding result. And because we have the most important population, the more we know, the better we can produce something that's powerful. Often what's been given to us colonization has tried to take from us. When we start talking about medical cannabis and growing hemp, what we have been allowed to do as sovereignty nations has been held back. We must go forward with the understanding that we have to hold our ground. We must go forward with the understanding that the United States government has to be accountable to our sovereignty and acknowledge our communities in order for us to grow and build our communities within this conversation of medical cannabis. We've been having conversations about plants for always and since always, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But some of the most beautiful things about growing plants is that there's a whole bunch of medicinal plants. Aren't they awesome? Some of the beautiful things that we know about them is when we grow cannabis with other plants like echinacea or lavender or marigold, we do, especially when we do it outside, and you can do this in an indoor grow, I've seen it done, we create ecosystems that create diversity, and that creates cross-pollination, and what that does to the cannabis plant is it raises its terpene profile. And terpenes, if you don't know, kick off our olfactory sensation. I'm so sorry, I'm so lame with this thing. I hope I'm not losing you in it. So our olfactory sensation is how our body heals. The biodiversity of a cannabis grow is as important as the biodiversity of us. We can't create in these sterile environments where we're just driving THC. When we do that, we separate ourselves once again and we move into the chain of colonization. Being told what we're supposed to do instead of doing what we naturally know to do will not bring harmony to our nations. As I mentioned, we've been having conversations about plants for a long time. We need to stand our ground with other plants that are also sacred to us. White sage, for an example. How many conversations have we had in California about the over-harvesting of white sage by others outside of our nations, to where they've almost picked it so much it doesn't grow? Or our sacred grandmother peyote. I've had members of my family arrested for transporting this particular cactus in a sacred way for ceremonies. And cannabis is no different. I've had family members arrested in jail for growing medicines for their family. As a young woman, I've experienced ceremonies being shut down around these plants. So I deeply know what is up for us as a nation and how hard it can come down on us if we are not following the rules. This sacred grandmother peyote and our white sage show us that we have to care for cannabis in the exact same way if we want it to continue to grow. And I'm bringing this up because I have the ear of all of you, and I need you to hear me. I need to make sure that we take care of this plant. This is the 9th year of this conference, and the feds are starting to open it up. So the more solid we are in our sovereignty, our conversations, and our structures, the less bamboozlement from the United States government we will experience. So once we have grown the plant and we want to turn it into medicines, we need to do this thing called extraction. These are 3 different types of extractions, and depending on the method of extraction and the strains depends on the darkness of the concentrate. The isolate is a white powder. It's a single molecular extraction that is done by taking a concentrate and spinning it to a certain temperature with a powder called hexane. At this certain temperature, we can pull the specific molecules that we want to work with. This is how we make CBD or THC isolate or any of the isolated molecules. There are multiple ways to pull and compress the cannabis plant. There's air compression, which is called CO2. There's a butane extraction called BHO. And then there's the oldest extraction method that we can track all the way back to the Ming Dynasty, 600 BC, and that's an alcohol extraction. All of these methods hold similar properties, but they're not the same. When we're working with people around a specific issue, we want a specific result. We need to be mindful of how something is created in order to ensure that best result. Isolate and full plant extractions are not the same thing, however, they both have equal value and weight. Once we've compounded it into a concentrate or an isolate, then we could step over to my mother's people and talk about infusing it. This is a product that we made. This is behind the mountains. That's my oldest daughter, Mary. And this graphic was built and created by my daughter, Alana, over here. This is a product that, the thing about cannabis is that it's a synergistic plant. Because it sits in the center of our plant wheel, it pulls the properties of all of the other plants and herbs, and it creates them to be stronger. So when we mix cannabis with things like frankincense, myrrh, calendula, cinnamon, lavender, rosemary, name it, we create a stronger representation of that plant, which makes it more healing, I think. So my daughter, when she was 12 years old, was told that she wouldn't be walking by the time she was 20 because of rheumatoid arthritis. So I reached into my grandmother from Persia, the lady in the corner, her cookbook, and I found a recipe, and I started making it and giving it to my daughter, and she's 42 years old, she has 6 children. She cleans hotel rooms for a living, and she walks all over the place. She's had no pharmaceuticals in her life. So I am incredibly grateful for having 2 grandparents that come from completely different ethnic backgrounds on completely different continents who brought the medicine of this particular plant to my life and showed me from the time I was a little girl all of its healing properties. And I promise you, like I said in the beginning, every single one of us has somebody in our family, if not us ourselves, who understands the plant people, who understands the medicines, who uses them and has been telling us for always, you don't need that, you just need to take this, you just need to do that. Let me put this on your foot, right? Everyone's got that on you. I know we do. THC is super powerful. Look, it's got a whole bunch of things going on to it. Like I said, hemp can make all kinds of different things. Our whole world before cotton was hemp. And since we've been doing cotton farming, we've had much more illness in our world. So is it because we removed hemp? Hemp restores the ground, as well as creates food, fiber, clothing, and medicine. THC is so powerful that there are only 2 THC molecules in the cannabinoid profile, but there's 60 more cannabinoid compounds and over 400 chemical entities, making the properties of this plant exceptional and never-ending. One thing that I feel that we do not need as a nation is another substance to get high with. I'm just kind of upset about that. You know, we don't need more ways to turn away from it. And the only time that we really need high THC in a product is when we're talking about cancer. If we focus all of our attention and energy on creating sustainable and economic growth within our communities using industrial hemp, we can harness this amazing plant who wants to help us create homes for our family, food for our people, oil for our cars. There are so many things we can do with hemp and medical and cannabis. The cannabinoid reference and the entourage effect are just part of them. I wanted to show you guys this chain because, as you can see, the very top molecule in a cannabis plant is CBGA. It's non-psychoactive. And then coming right off of it is THCA. And THC lands somewhere in the middle of the THC thread, and THC is not psychoactive unless it's activated by heat, unless it's decarboxylated. So we can use THCA to drive the other cannabinoids to create phenomenal medicines that have nothing to do with getting high, but actually creating an entourage effect in the body and providing extreme illness. Extreme illness. I apologize for my inability to speak this morning. I'm kind of nervous, but I'm really excited to be here with you. And this is just something that's so exciting to me because, you know, I like to say that I'm the only drug dealer who has a clientele that doesn't want to get high. And I work a lot with children, and when people reach out to me with their child, the first question they have of concern is my kid gonna get high? You know, and when you're speaking to a mom who has a child who's having 300 plus seizures, you want to be able to answer that question correctly. No, this is safe medicine for them. We can address those issues in a way that is not going to put you in jail or have your child taken away from you, or your kid's not going to have bleeding red eyes. It's going to be able to function. And then there's a lot of people who, you have to go to work, right? And you can't go to work if you're like in your couch drooling. You know, that's for when you get home. So there's so many ways to use cannabis as medicine and not get high at all. And that is what I really hope that we have been listening through this whole last 2 days, talking about sovereignty and what we're going to do with ourselves and how we're going to grow ourselves. We literally have the ability from coast to coast within all of our resources and all of our nations to be able to blanket this country and weave together all of our skill sets and make an amazing demonstration of what this plant can do, not only for the healing of others, but for the economic healing of our environment. So, why are we doing this? This is more in my family. We're doing this for the next 7 generations, right? I mean, that's why we're here. We're here because we want to make sure that our children are not going to grow up in poverty, that they're not going to be the ones who are the sickest in the room, that we're not going to have diabetes at 14 years old, you know, that we're going to be healthy and strong. And the way that we do that, the way that we ensure that, is we get in front of the conversations that are being given to us by the United States government. We create our sovereignty as a nation, and we move together as one nation. I think I heard there was 574 recognized tribes in the United States, right? And then how many non-recognized tribes are there? How many non-affiliate nations have the government said, oh, there's not enough of you, or we moved you over there, or we banded you with those guys, so y'all are that now. If we literally just work together within our communities, we will be able to go into the legislative body and be like, hey, there's a lot of us, and we're all over the country, and we have it together, and we're going to tell you how it's going to roll. So that's my dream for all of us, is that we can use this cannabis industry, that we can use this hemp farming. So all of these little kids are all grown in their 40s, okay? But on the sides, and all of the children that you have at your home, that they can grow up in a world where we're using hemp, that this is a way that we can feed our nation, that we can make industry, that we can sell to the outside and bring all of that inside, instead of us having to go outside and bring it inside. Especially if we're going to be hemp farming, because there's just so much you can do with hemp. So, you know, there's nothing more dangerous than a sober native. There just isn't. Like, they're already so scared of us, and they've already got so many, like, ways to talk about us. But when we're in our sobriety, and we know who we are as people, and we speak our language, and we understand our traditions, even if they're just a tiny little bit, even if we could just say thank you and know how to pray in that way, we become a stronger unit and a stronger nation. And I worked in Montana, I lived in Montana for a long time, and I worked with all 7 tribes creating economic development throughout the nations. And one thing that I saw during that time that was just so amazing was that the way that we can delete poverty within our nations is by giving people a job. Because when you're involved in something, when your hard work, when your time and your effort is shown in real time by a product that you made, something that you were part of, and you have agency to that, then it seeds deeply inside of us, and we want more of it. And we have a connection to it more than a dividend check, which I'm not saying that's bad, but you know, it doesn't seed the same level of responsibility and respect that what we create does. So, this is me. I appreciate all of you for listening to me as I stumbled over it. This is the most important community to me, and I really am honored and blessed that you gave me your time and listened to me. Thank you.